There are over 800,000 opening traps in the game of chess, but among all these traps is one that is simple yet effective. An opening trick that works against low-rated Neanderthals as well as against the upper echelon of ELO enthusiasts.
Wait a second.
And an opening that very few people know the existence of, the Halosar Trap. You start the game by playing d4, the queen's pawn opening, and your opponent responds with d5. And now comes the first of two main sacrifices. You're going to play e4, offering your opponent a free pawn. Now your opponent's going to take this free pawn, and you're immediately going to attack their pawn by playing knight to c3. The most common and natural move is for black to play knight f6, developing their knight and protecting their pawn. And now instead of trying to win back this pawn, you're going to offer another one of your foot soldiers by playing f3. Again, the most common and natural move is for your opponent just to take this pawn. After this happens, it's very important you remember you're not going to take back with your knight, but instead take the pawn with your queen, leaving this pawn unguarded. And like a child who got too close to a windowless van, your pawn will immediately be abducted, sacrificing the second pawn in this opening. After the queen takes your pawn, you're going to attack their piece and develop by playing bishop to e3, planning to long castle next move. Now your opponent's queen is already out in the open, and since black is winning by 2 already, the most common move is queen b4, continuing to attack and targeting your pawn here on b2. And all you have to do to defend this is just castle queenside. And now you've just given up this skewer here. Is what an unenlightened amateur like you would think. But don't worry, I will enlighten you. Now, it may appear that you can't take the bishop because it's defended by the knight. If you move your queen anywhere, your rook dies, and you can't even make any counterplay by taking this pawn because it's defended by the queen. But at this point, when your opponent skewers your pieces and thinks they're the second coming of Bobby Fischer, you play the winning move, knight b5. If black takes your queen, their fate is sealed and you have knight captures c7, checkmate. Now, even though this is the most common thing for black to do, there are a few ways they may try to defend this. A common method of defense is knight a6, defending their pawn here. Now, although this pawn is defended, this one is not, leaving your queen free to take it. And now there's almost no way for them to defend their rook without blundering more material or checkmate, so they'll probably just take your rook. And now you're free to take their rook with check. Their only logical move is to move their king here, and at this point, you're just winning. And now you can just take their bishop, or even just take this pawn on a7, setting up this attack against your opponent's knight with your bishop. Now, another way your opponent may try to defend your attack is after they play knight a6 and you take their pawn, they may play queen e4. Now, you can't take the rook because after queen takes, the opponent's knight defends their pawn on c7. So instead, if they defend with their queen, take the knight on a6. They'll take your bishop with check. Now this might look a little bit dangerous to you, but remember, you're unenlightened, so you're probably wrong. Just move your king to b1, and now if your opponent takes your rook, you have queen at d6, attacking the king and the rook. They have to defend with their knight, and you get to take the rook and the knight, and force the king into the center of the board, giving yourself a completely winning position. Now let's say they move their king instead of defending with a knight. Now you have this cool checkmate by playing queen takes c7. He can only move his king to e8. Now you sacrifice your knight by playing knight d6. Black has to take with his pawn. You're going to bring your bishop in, bishop b5 check. They have to block with their knight, and after gloating for at least 5 to 10 minutes, you just take it with checkmate. But hold on, what if your opponent plays knight d7 instead to defend against your formidable attack? First of all, do not play the tempting move knight takes c7, unless you want to cause yourself stage 3 depression. Because after king d8, your knight's being attacked, your queen is still skewered, and there's just too much going on for you to emotionally handle. So you're just going to do the same thing as before and take the pawn on b7. Now if black takes your rook, you get his rook plus a free knight. However, there is a good move here for black that's really hard to see, but let's say after you take the pawn on b7, they play queen to e4. In this situation, you can still take the rook and win back your queen, but after your opponent takes your rook, your knight is kind of trapped back here, and personally, I don't like this variation. Instead, if they play queen to e4, you can just take the queen, they have to take back with their knight, and now play rook d4, attacking black's knight and threatening this fork with your knight. They can't defend both of these threats, so if they choose to save their knight, they're going to lose their rook, and if they try to defend their rook, then they're going to lose their knight. And from this position, I mean, if you lose, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe try playing tic-tac-toe instead. Now wait, before you go and try this out, you need to see this trap in effect in real life. So we're going to take a look at this game from the Coffee Chess channel between a guy with a mullet and Anna Gramling, a woman FIDE master, where the Halosar Trap was played very effectively. The game started off exactly the way I talked about before, with black taking both pawns and moving the bishop to skewer the queen and the rook. The knight comes out to attack, and now black defends by playing knight to a6. Now, if you were paying attention, you should remember what to do here. Exactly, you take the pawn on b7 with your queen. Now in this case, queen e4 would be the best move for black, but instead they just take white's rook. Now of course, taking black's rook would be the best move because after they move their king, you can collect this pawn on a7 with your knight, and now you're attacking black's knight with your bishop and your opponent's bishop with your king. But in the game, Mullet Man took Anna's pawn with check. Either way, white is still winning here. King goes to d7, bishop b5 check, king d8, knight on knight violence on a6, rook c8, white takes the queen, and after a few more moves, black resigns. So what have we learned from this game? The Halosar Trap does work in real life, but most importantly, to never underestimate a determined man with a mullet. So go try it out, and if you can't remember these steps, save the video by leaving a like, and you can always come back to it later.